Hello and welcome back to the Warwick F1 show. This week we are looking at the Miami Grand Prix, obviously after the race in Baku. We were sort of looking forward to this one, and I think it was slightly better than definitely last year, definitely better than Baku, but maybe not the race that most people were hoping for. Obviously Max Verstappen taking another win for the Red Bull team with Perez behind him, overtaking his teammate on that one-stop strategy. The podium rounded out again by Fernando Alonso. And we'll be discussing all of that as well as Ferrari, Mercedes and everything else that happened this week. I'm here with Will and Chinmay. How you guys doing?
Not too bad. I mean, kind of okay after yesterday. It wasn't Ferrari's best day, but it was the second most points they've had at a race this season.
So it just says a lot about Ferrari.
Got to look on the bright side, but hey ho, what can you do?
Yeah, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, it was a meh race.
It was meh. I mean,
it's just the most meh thing I can ever think of.
It wasn't, and that is what I was getting at. It wasn't bad. It was just there.
It was almost just what you expected to happen.
Yeah.
Minus Ferrari being dreadful.
And qualifying.
Qualifying was like the highlight of the weekend.
That's normally a Monaco thing.
Yeah, well, they're going after it with the whole Marina thing. Maybe that's what they wanted to go after. So we'll make qualifying our main event.
Just discount Monaco. Right, we'll go through, we'll start with the top 10s.
Yeah.
Or top 10? 10 out of 10? There's something 10 related. Rate the race out of 10, Will.
I'll go with like a 7. I think I'm probably biased after Baku being so boring. It was nice to see some overtaking. Unlike Baku, I think the DRS actually had, like the changing of the lengths was actually good. You got a lot of overtaking under braking, as opposed to last year where everything was just done on the straight. And I think, yes, it was what we expected, but it was a phenomenal drive from Verstappen. So although it was a bit boring, at least we got to see those overtakes. It wasn't all done through the pits. It's just a shame about the strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably give it a 5 to 6. It was just I think I'm just gonna call it an NPC race. So, it's been there's some very good overtakes, a lot of good racing, especially some good overtaking. But then obviously we've got Red Bull just being about 500 times quicker than everybody else and bolting a massive rocket ship to the back of that car.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll go for a 6 because they was probably almost the best race of the season for actual overtaking, but then just everything surrounding it didn't really happen and didn't really it was predictable, but entertainingly predictable in almost, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I think we all knew that the Red Bull was just going to be a joke, especially with the straight line speed and DRS that it has. I think it was entertaining to see other cars come up through, seeing Lewis actually finally get past Alex Albon after about 15 laps, then managed to progress up through the field, and then watch the unlikely battle of Charles Leclerc and Kevin Magnussen. It was more entertaining than I think we feared it could have been after last year. So it was just what you thought would happen after qualifying.
Do you think that maybe one of the ones you look back on and think that was probably better than we gave it credit for? Like at the end of the season, once everything's said and done, I think it'll probably be one of the average ones, but it might be like upper average rather than like a Baku, which I'm pretty sure, unless this season gets somehow worse, will be in the bottom 3 worst races of the season.
This season's very 2015 vibes.
Yay!
It's very 2015 vibe. Just replace the silver cars with a blue car. But yeah, I think this race was sort of like standard. I think it'll probably be sort of given that sort of mid-tier, maybe mid-upper tier sort of ratings. I'm just glad this year, probably the biggest improvement for this year's race compared to last year was the camera direction. We actually got to saw racing rather than crowd shots.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably get started with obviously the rocket ship you mentioned previously. Red Bull, they would just a class of their own. Again, Verstappen down in 9th with his issues that he had in qualifying, making a mistake on the first lap and then not getting that second lap in. But in the race. He was getting past drivers like they were standing still. It was ridiculous how quick that car was.
Yeah, it's a bit of a joke, but I think also it was one of Max Verstappen's sneakily best weekends he's had. I think his Q2 time was quicker than Perez's pole time.
He was.
So
Oh my gosh.
he was having a very good weekend. He looked comfortable from the start. I think regardless of where he qualified, I still think he would have been Checo. He was just that quick over the weekend. He probably could have started on wet tyres and pitted and gone on a one stop and won the race. It wouldn't have surprised me.
No, I mean, Verstappen throughout the weekend it looked like he was in a class of his own. I think he was, 4 tenths up in final practice, like leading in Q1, Q2. There was that hope when he qualified ninth that we might get something interesting, but by the time he was, fourth by lap 14 or lap 15, and then, or I think third, and then behind Alonso, who thought it was going to take 10 laps longer, and then got past. And once it became clear the medium, the hard to medium strategy was the better strategy, you almost felt it was inevitable.
Verstappen was 26 seconds ahead of Alonso. And by the way, pit stop in Miami was about 18 seconds.
That pit lane is really short. That's a
It is. It
quick pit
also
stop.
cuts off the first corner, so it doesn't have the heavy braking zone. You kind of come out at a better speed.
Okay. But
It's almost a bit like the Canadian one where it
Yeah.
cuts that first corner.
Yeah.
Or Silverstone, where you kind of
Yeah,
you come out.
Silverstone as well.
But I mean, we had hope for Perez after last week. Is that more of a standard? I don't know what it is. It genuinely is a thing now. Perez and street circuits just go well together. But if you put him on like a semi-street to actual racetrack, he doesn't seem to have the pace. Maybe.
I don't even know if it's that. I think it could just be that we look at like Verstappen on tracks like this. He's able just to put so much energy through the car and really put it to its limits. And I think he knows he can afford to have weekends where at places like Monaco, Baku, where even if he can't push the car to its limits and pick up second on say 3 races a year, he'll still walk the title.
Yeah.
So yeah, he probably wants to win, but at the same time he doesn't want to risk chucking his car into a wall. Whereas somewhere like Miami, you have the massive runoffs. I know Leclerc managed to destroy his car, but that was probably the only car that did that, I think, at the weekend. So you've got the room to make errors and lock up and run wide.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing as well. There was only one mistake out of all the drivers across all the laps, and that was Sainz's 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. But no yellow flags, no safety cars.
It's the first race with no yellow flags since Monaco 2021.
Were there no yellow flags?
Yeah, Monaco 2021 was the last race to have no yellow flags.
Yeah, I thought that was a lie, but apparently it's not.
Yeah.
I think it's because there were DNFs in Monaco.
There were DNFs in that race.
Because that was the
Bottas.
legendary 42-hour pit stop.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's almost like F1 drivers are getting too good.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really say that when you've got Nick de Vries on the grid and Lance Stroll, but
No, I mean, do you see Red Bull winning every race this season? Because Mercedes got close a few times, you think, to 2014, where the only thing that stopped them were issues in qualifying in Hungary for Hamilton, and then in Belgium, collisions and issues for Rosberg, and then Canada issues for both teams. And then in 2016, you had obviously them colliding with one another in Spain, and I think and then the race where Hamilton was leading and his engine blew up. But so obviously there is that mechanical aspect, but do you think Red Bull can do what no other team has done and win every race this season?
I think there is a good possibility, bearing in mind how far ahead. And I think we were mentioning earlier that, and also looking back at Baku, that he was still pretty much the same pace with everybody else with a massive hole in the side pod. So he's pretty much got probably like a 25-30% reduction in aerodynamics. And he's still ridiculously quick. And I'm still convinced Red Bull are still sandbagging. I'm still convinced. I mean, just looking at the way that he so easily overtook people, that double overtake on the pit straight, and the way he just literally just walked past Russell on the back straight. But I think that's just more. That's also doing Mercedes just being really slow in a straight line. But
I need someone engineering competent to explain why their DRS is so much better than everyone else's.
It's to do with the suspension setup, pretty much. It's to do with the way they managed to optimize the suspension setup, and it's sort of like you can almost call it like a triple DRS in a way. It's just the way Red Bull managed to optimize their aerodynamics is just unreal, because obviously they are run by the guy who literally seasoned CFD, and they are keeping for a bit longer as well.
Oh, can you imagine the scenes if they get caught or they're over the cost cap again? Everyone Twitter would go into the absolute meltdown.
I genuinely think they could have no wind tunnel time and still have the best designed aero cars just because of Adrian Newey.
And everyone just think of a more creative punishment, just like Adrian Newey banned for
Adrian Newey has to be shared between all teams. It's not wind tunnel time, it's Newey time. You go.
Yeah.
So the gap is, what's the gap now? 14 points between Verstappen and Perez, and then coming into Imola, do you think up to 21 or maybe back down to 7 if we're assuming that Red Bull want to?
Probably up to 22 before we get all a fastest lap. And he walked away with it last year. I mean, Perez got second after Leclerc managed to spin. It's a maxed happy track. He likes to do well there.
Grand Slam.
Huh?
Grand Slam, do you think?
It wouldn't surprise me.
I think if he got pole this week, he would have got a Grand Slam easily.
Yeah. I think the other thing as well is I wouldn't be surprised if Perez isn't second. I think it's one of those tracks, you've got one long straight. Other than that, not massively. So you look at actually in Baku, the bit of the track the Ferrari did best in was the slow speed corners. You could see perhaps another Leclerc or Sainz front row.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
No, but you think last year they had maybe not Sainz, he'll find the gravel again, but it'll be an interesting race. I think it won't be their most comfortable weekend. And again, similar to Albert Park, you might see Mercedes up there as well.
They might only be 10 seconds ahead of everyone else.
So they might not be able to pit for soft tyres with a lap to go or something.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's always potential, because I mean, Imola is one of those tracks. It's really difficult to overtake, but there can be bangers as well. 2021 was probably the big example.
Please don't remind me how difficult it is to overtake Imola. I feel like
Yeah, and then last year we did obviously.
No, don't.
5 laps.
Don't remind me of that. I think it was the rain as well.
Hopefully we get DRS the whole time.
Yeah.
That should bother to turn it on.
Apart from Red Bull, just not that
they should be banned from having DRS. I'm not saying this because I don't like Red Bull. I'm saying it because I like racing.
I still think they've got the straight line speed anyway.
I think their car would be quicker. Well, I think as quick as probably the Mercedes. That thing is a boat.
It looked quicker in a straight line than the Ferrari yesterday though, which was concerning.
Speaking of Ferrari, somehow your second, as you said, somehow the second best race, but really bad. Or no, not even really bad, but you know who had a really shocking weekend? Charles Leclerc for the first time in a while.
Yeah, I think I saw somewhere that he's crashed more this year than Mick Schumacher did last year, and we're 5 races in.
I think it's quality over quantity of crashes, maybe.
Yeah, they haven't been as expensive, which is good, and obviously some of them haven't had any impact. But it's been a lot of ups and downs for Ferrari. I think they've not quite got the right setup with the car. They've had all the changes behind the scenes, different people leaving to go to different jobs, and trying to figure out how all of that works, but you can and can't tell everyone. It's going to be interesting to see how they do throughout the season. Leclerc, it wasn't his finest weekend. He should not be battling with a Haas for 6 points.
Where did he finish? Was he 7th?
He's 7th.
Yeah.
Ahead of Gasly, just about.
Yeah, because he overtook Gasly at some point.
Yeah. He got past Gasly,
Then Lewis
and
got
then
past
Lewis got past both of
Gasly,
them.
and then Lewis got past Leclerc. I mean, it was odd. He just never really looked. He looked quick, but then he crashed, and that feels like the career of Charles Leclerc so far.
Literally, I mean, it is very painful to watch actually. Wasn't it? But wasn't it the same corner he crashed twice as well?
It was Q2. He just sort of lost the rear and then straightened the car, but by then it's too late to.
No, because he crashed out in one of the practice sessions as well.
Yeah.
Oh no! Yeah, P2.
FP2, yeah.
FP2.
Yeah. So.
And then obviously in Q3, Luke lost the rear, spun it, and then was like, "Nah, I want the back to go into the barrier first." So spun it back around.
This was after he'd locked up, after probably putting in a pole lap and just locking it up at the final corner, having 2 purple sectors or whatever it was.
Yeah. Is he too inconsistent?
I don't think it's inconsistent. I think after last year, he has unrealistic expectations of how close they should be. And I think he knows he is a better driver than most people on the grid, and he is pushing that car too hard to limits it can't be going because he wants to win.
Yeah. I mean, we saw mistakes last year as well. France was a big example. I guess you could probably count Japan as another example when he locked up at the final corner. But Leclerc, he's such a quick driver, but he just if you ask someone in level cars who is most likely to get pole, most people say maybe Verstappen, Alonso, Hamilton, or Leclerc. But then if you ask them who's most likely to bin it while trying to get pole, Leclerc would also be on that list. And
I think he'll be the top of the list.
different.
Yeah, no, but like, of all the people who are actually able to compete, I'm doing it that way as well. He unfortunately he's had this terrible thing where he has binned it on more than one occasion now. I think sometimes I see it. Sometimes just a massive crack of pressure. But yeah, it's a hard one to say.
Yeah, but Sainz had a much better race, and I think that was good for him. Or I say much better. Sainz did as well as he could have, or did he know?
It was like a positive weekend, I guess
Because
you could
it
call
wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad. He was better than Leclerc. He just kind of neither Ferrari had any pace in the race.
Yeah.
He had an okay qualifying session. It wasn't phenomenal. I think he should have been quicker than Alonso, and probably Sainz. Probably Perez. Sorry, because Perez's pole time wasn't that quick.
Yeah.
So it's a hard one to judge. I think especially with the qualifying results not going the whole way through, and then locking up coming into the pits drastically. Not that the 5-second penalty made any difference in the end. It was an average weekend.
Which for Sainz is
a good one.
Weekend.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, where did Ferrari go from him? Because Aston Martin are buoyed a lot by the staggering consistency of Fernando Alonso, who's apparently scored 15 points at every weekend so far. Mercedes, while in qualifying they are genuinely quite trash, in the race they've actually got a fairly decent race car. Like you saw that with Russell, you saw that with Hamilton as well. Do you think Ferrari sort of have that risk of being left out in the cold? Like they've not got a very good, well they've got a good quali car, but it comes with a driver that's maybe a bit out of form and a driver that could very easily put it on the front row or put it into a barrier. And do you think they're there? Where do you think Ferrari will end up?
I'm not sure. I think the team that I think could make the most progress out of everyone is Aston Martin. They've got a lot of wind tunnel time to use. Mercedes are the team I fear for a little bit because they've got a new side pod, a new floor, and new suspension coming. If that goes wrong, that's a lot of their cost cap spent on potentially going backwards.
They're going to do a Ferrari and bring upgrades to make the car worse.
Yeah. Ferrari, if they get their act together in the race, should be second. they have the car that should be second, but they're just not. There's something not quite right. It hasn't been for the last few years. They can't get a race set up. Amazing in qualifying. They just don't have. I think it's the straight line speed against the Red Bull as well. They just lack in races. They just seem to lose straight line speed when they're full of fuel.
I think that's everyone against the Red Bull at the moment.
Yeah.
It's a bit hard to say because it's more just set up confusion. And the thing is that they've been doing this for years now. We saw literally last year as well, where the Ferrari's been ridiculous on one-lap pace, but then but then the race is just utterly woeful, and it just eats up tyres. I think the biggest, from what I've seen, one of the most consistent problems Ferrari's had is actually tyre degradation, because the last few iterations of the car now has just been eating tyres like there's no tomorrow, which kind of does not help their race pace at all, which is, I think, part of the reason why they, obviously one lap are really quick, the raw pace is good, but they can't maintain it for very long, and they sort of drop off very, very quickly as well, because I don't know what you two think, but it's like, especially towards like end of stints in the season as well, so that's when they especially fall back, when the tyres get all worn up, and obviously Ferrari with the hard tyre just some reason does not make an especially good combo.
I mean, Hamilton seemed to bang a nose on different tyres and a lot fresher, but seemed to just breeze past Leclerc. I was thinking about this. Hamilton v Leclerc is a battle you'd think you'd have seen more, but you really haven't sort of seen it because they've never been in a good car at the same time.
2019 potentially in Bahrain.
Well, I guess,
but
even then Leclerc would
have won had his car not broken down.
Yeah, and then I guess Italy, where's that?
Yeah, 2019 when he won in Monza.
Yeah, but you've not seen it, and I mean, Ferrari, it does feel like, especially after last year when Ferrari, this time last year, Charles Leclerc was almost 30 points ahead of Verstappen in the championship. I think it feels like they just dropped back so far from where they were. You'd think every year when Mercedes were challenging Ferrari, Mercedes the next year would bring an amazing car. When Red Bull came back up in sort of 2021 into now, and then back in like the 2010s up until 2014, you expected Red Bull to bring a good car next year. But with Ferrari, you don't know if they're going to bring. Well, they had good cars in 2017, 2018, and 2019. Then they brought terrible cars in 2020 and 2021. But now they bought a good car in 2022, but now it's back to bad in 2023. You just never know what you're going to get with them.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with the last few years. I think the issue with 2020 and 2021 is the engine, when they got told off for having very illegal ones. Because actually, in places like Monaco, that car was still very he got 2 poles I think that year in 2021 with a dreadful Ferrari car. Leclerc did. I think their car's it's been good. The engine's been really hit and miss. And again, as Chinmay was saying, the tyre deck is just not where it needs to be able to sustain pressure for a whole. Because the second you get stuck behind a car, your tyres are going to die, and you're not going to stay in with the DRS range and just fall off.
I mean, that's probably what you saw this week with Leclerc and Magnussen, because once Leclerc got past Magnussen, he was able to put 6, 7, 8 seconds on him, but it was just him not being able to get past Magnussen probably destroyed his tyres.
Yeah, he would gain so much. You could watch the time experience. He would gain 6/10 down the straight, not in DRS. Get into the windy section, the tyres would just drop off.
It was a disappointingly good race, or a good disappointing race for Ferrari.
Yeah, it's not what you wanted, but after recent results, you kind of take it. Both cars finished.
Yeah, it was such an NPC race.
Yeah.
It's
just there.
It was there. It was fine.
I don't know. I mean, personally speaking, I think part of that is to do with the circuit. The circuit's really. So I think the circuit's good, but I just feel there's just something about the circuit that doesn't wow me.
It's soulless.
Yeah, it's very soulless. I think partly to do with the fact that it was mostly built in a car park and you got a waterless marina.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones like you have like the tricky chicane that used to be Red Bull Corner last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got like the S's, but they're not the sort of S's you get at Silverstone and Maggots and.
Yeah.
But it's like almost every track on the calendar has a defining feature. Like Saudi Arabia's got it's just so quick. Like Monza's like straight lines. And like Baku's got its tight and twisty castle section into the hugely long straight. Miami has nothing.
It just copies everything. It's not got its own feature. I think the thing as well is like there isn't a bit of track where you will see a driver pull more out of the car than normal. Like there in certain tracks, the driver will make a lap. Here it just feels like if you have a good setup, your car will go well.
But even like traditionally terrible tracks, like I'm thinking of Sochi, perhaps. Turn 4 at Sochi was still quite unique and quite cool. That still was a sort of defining feature. It does just feel like Miami has no interesting features that make it stand out, that make it say, oh, we're going to Miami, we're going to look forward to this corner, we're going to... But when you look at, like, obviously, even Monaco, and Monaco is normally, like...
Monaco's track itself is iconic and more interesting than the race itself.
Like, Imola's got the history when we don't perhaps get good races. Every track I can think of...
It has its own sort of signature.
Yeah. Maybe with the exception of Abu Dhabi, but...
No, Abu Dhabi has the hotel,
And even
the
that.
appearance. Like, I mean, yes, there's nothing to do with the track, but you got... At least there's a defining feature for it.
But you'd think, like, even Miami's obviously around the Hard Rock Stadium, but it's just...
You don't go around it, though. It'd be great if it was in the middle, but it's not.
It's all just there.
Yeah.
It's just the backdrop. I think the issue as well is like, bar that little chicane, there is no elevation change at all. You're basically, it's just flat. Like, even places like Sochi had, like, some sort of elevation. Or,
no, Sochi is the flattest race on the calendar.
Well, maybe not Sochi. Well, that's why it's not on the calendar part, I guess. But Abu Dhabi, you've got a lot of camber and different things like down towards there. Well, both hairpins now.
Yeah.
And there is still that final race of the season signature.
If it didn't have lots of money, it probably wouldn't be on the track on the calendar.
But they want to make. I saw reports that they want to make it a night race, and I would be interested to see if that did the same sort of thing that making Bahrain a night race would be. Because you think back to Bahrain when it was a day race, it also had the same vibe of not really having a signature because it was sort of in a desert. It's quite just bland looking.
Yeah, I was actually watching classic Top Gear episode, and literally I remember they're doing the news segment, and Clarkson was literally just slating Bahrain, saying it was a rubbish race and everything. I'm like, how wrong could you be now if you said that?
Yeah.
Still think Miami Sunset race. This is how you improve
Miami
it.
Sunset would be so.
I still don't understand why they moved away from doing it on like the beachfront.
Yeah.
It would have just been iconic.
For those residents.
Yeah, but it's all hotels pretty much on the seafront anyway.
Yeah.
Like, surely, like the hotels, like, oh yeah, we'll get a load of people to come stay in here for a week.
Another thing was it wasn't particularly well attended either, and you look to America now. There's 3 races. You've got Texas, which is like the whole. Probably more like Southern America, it's like cowboys, Stetson, that sort of thing.
The Daniel Ricciardo weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you've got Vegas, which is about as glitzy and glamorous as F1 can get. It's quite almost like chauvinistic in that it's sort of harking back to the roots of F1 as like a gentleman sport that was quite elitist and maybe even still is to a certain extent today. Do you think Miami just doesn't, it sort of tries to mix the two and doesn't really, it's worse than both of the races at being both sort of homegrown America and glitzy America?
No, it's not so much that. I think they've picked an iconic place and just done it in the least iconic place in that city.
Yeah.
Like, you've got this amazing seafront, you've got the sunsets and everything that Miami's kind of known for, like all the lakes, the water, the beaches, and you put it in a car park outside of a stadium, which most countries around the world mock that sport for. Don't get me wrong, I love the sport, but
sport's good.
the sport's great, but most people like have no interest in it, so the stadium means nothing to them. I think it just shows there's no kind of, you don't get people coming around the world to go watch the Miami Grand Prix in the same way people go to Brazil, might go to Canada to watch the race.
Or even probably go to Vegas.
But Texas was a great race.
Yeah.
It just, you think back to that Texas qualifying or the Austin qualifying not quali, it was like the end of practice 2, I think, where it was the Charles Leclerc shot with the sunset in the background. Like,
amazing.
They could do that for Miami in the race. And it's like the Miami like vibe and the whole like aesthetic around Miami is that sunset with the palm trees, with the sort of techno colours like purple and things like that, which is what you saw on the Red Bull, obviously, with their special livery. But they've opted
to do it
to
in
not
the
do
middle
that.
of the day.
Middle of the day in a car park around a stadium
That's like 10 miles outside the city.
Yeah.
You're not going to get good attendance because people are going to struggle to get there anyway from where it is. I know people can drive or whatever, but
it's a bit out of the way in terms of America.
Yeah, it's about as southern as you can get almost.
Yeah.
Outside of Texas.
And it's expensive. I mean, it's very expensive to go to as well.
Yeah, like the merch prices compared to the UK ones, like 3 times as much, I think.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I remember going to Florida. You end up spending a lot of money on
It's
the holiday
just
there.
a bit soulless.
Yeah.
Obviously there is that desire for them to add, God forbid, a 4th rate American race. Where would that 4th? It was it's either New York or like LA. They want like an East and a West race.
I think Long Beach you could do.
I don't think indie tracks work because I think they're too short.
I think they are, but I think you could set it in that sort of location. I would love to see, if they're going to do a 4, I'd love to see Formula 1 team up with IndyCar and do like a double weekend, and do it like on the same weekend and do like put the IndyCar, like organise it so one's on the Saturday and one's on the Sunday. I think that would be, you bring the crowds in, you bring all the Indy fans in anyway, and you'd have this massive spectacle of.
Or can you imagine Indy 500 week, Indy 500 plus an Indy F1 race on the same day? You do like I guess the Indy 500 is like during the day, so move that back a little bit.
I don't think they're going to move the Indy 500 for Formula 1.
I mean, I'm very much down for it. Just mention Michelin's not the tyre supplier.
No issues with that, but it's just like so dull. It's not.
It's there.
It's not even. You can't even like say words about it.
No. The defining feature is the fact that we go under an overpass.
Yeah.
Probably.
Or which some police officers were watching, and that must be a fun, because I think they were like stopping traffic, obviously going onto the overpass, and it's just like, that must be a fun few hours of your day. No stress, you just get to watch some F1 from like the best point on the track.
Yeah, I know it gets a lot of grief for having, it's got 3 races, but you look at the size of the country and then you think, in the last 5 years, you think, well, the last 10 years, you've got a race in Netherlands, Belgium, France, Germany some years, Spain, Monaco, which are literally half the size of the US, and you've got 7 races. I get it's different countries, but actually you look at the size of the US, you're trying to increase the amount of people that can come to these events.
I think 3 is fairly reasonable.
3, yeah.
4
would push it.
Yeah, I could do 4 at a push. 5, no.
I think 4 if it was unique. If you went to like Laguna Seca, or
I think the track's too. I do like the track, but it's too short.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the corkscrew. I don't think will be suitable for F1 cars.
Yeah.
So it's the elevation.
But something like that.
Yeah.
Would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is personality to, like, Texas has, or Austin has so much personality.
Yeah.
Vegas, if that track somehow doesn't have personality, I think they would have done it. Well, it's gonna have, but it's on the strip.
Personality, but it's a dreadful layout. It's just gonna be a Red Bull drag race basically.
Yeah.
So I think, to be fair, I don't know what you're doing about, but like, I'm going into going to the Vegas weekend fully expecting a rubbish race.
Yeah.
I'm just looking just the spectacle alone is just going to be the best thing ever.
It's going to be exactly like Monaco.
I'm overhyping that.
I think it's going to be the inverse of Monaco. I think the cars going to be so spread out that you'll be able to kind of have just gaps of track without action.
I think
speed, straight line speed.
It's going to be entertaining but not enjoyable.
Yeah, it'll be a bit like Mexico without the altitude, essentially.
Yeah. Oh god, the Mexican Grand Prix got so boring these days.
Yeah.
I feel like we got away from sort of the race and we
Yes.
sort of moved on to Miami. Mercedes, just quite average in qualifying and then had quite a good race. It's not really much to say about them. They're just sort of fairly average these days.
Yeah, I think Mercedes are just looking to see how they do this weekend, try and damage control and wait for Imola. I think they're just waiting for Imola, especially Lewis Hamilton. I remember watching the post-race interview, and he was literally like on his feet, literally like, please can next race to come? Just he wants that upgrade so desperately.
If the car is bad at Imola, I think I might cry, like genuinely. There's such a hope, and it's an interesting one because I feel like Hamilton's not had a bad. I feel like his start to the season was worse last year.
Yeah.
But he feels like it feels worse this year somehow.
I think the car's more competitive this year than it was last year.
Yeah. But where's he finished this year so far?
So the same number of podiums as he had last year, I think. He had one.
Yeah. And he finished 6th in Miami. He was...
Well, he was what?
5th in
Bahrain.
5th in Bahrain. Where was he in Baku? This is how NPC the races have been this year. They're just existing.
I want to say he was 5th in Baku as well. Because was he ahead of Sainz but behind Alonso?
Yeah, he's behind Sainz. He ended up 6th.
Only non-Red Bull drivers finish in the top 2 this season.
Yeah.
That's my go. But Hamilton v Russell is a battle that is rumbling on. It's always been one of them has done a lot better than the other at every individual race.
Yeah.
But who do you think has had the better start to the season? Because personally, I'd say Lewis, but I think his expectations are a lot higher, so it feels worse.
I'm trying to think. George Russell's been Mr. Consistent again.
Yeah.
He's dominated him in qualifying. It's 4-1 to Russell at the moment, outside of Baku.
Yeah. You don't get points for qualifying.
No, exactly. But I said this a few years ago. George Russell is a great qualifier. His race, he's a good defender as well. He's not great at moving up through a field particularly.
Yeah. So Lewis is 5th, 2nd, 6th, 6th.
Although I'd say George Russell would have beaten him in Australia comfortably.
Not with the red. I don't think. Or I think if the red flag hadn't happened.
But up until that point, he was having a much stronger weekend.
So Russell was 7th, 4th, retired, 8th, and 4th.
He's been quite up and down.
Yeah. Lewis is more Mr. Consistent.
Yeah. Doesn't seem... The thing that really annoyed me yesterday is when Lewis was like, I'm not backing off. There was no need to do that on the radio. I get you let him pass eventually, but there was no need to say that if he needs to pass me, he can do it on pace. After years of basically making the team let Bottas let you through, you can do this one thing when you're on different strategies.
Yeah.
Toto seems quite confident that Lewis will sign a new contract.
Yeah.
And I'm just getting the vibe that he won't and might just retire.
I think he wants to drive for Ferrari at some point. I think that is the one thing he hasn't done.
That could work actually. he goes to Ferrari to replace Sainz.
But I can't imagine him liking his experience at Ferrari when the strategy's wrong every week and everything goes wrong. He'd leave after about 3 weeks into pre-season. Like, I'm retiring now.
But do you think he's at the point where he's not bigger than the team? But if he goes to Ferrari, like Aston Martin with Fernando Alonso, Alonso's sort of able to run his own race in a way. Whereas, and like you'd say maybe Verstappen with Red Bull, and to a certain extent, or at least in like until about 2021 and maybe last year, Hamilton had with Mercedes. They were sort of able to dictate. So do you think Hamilton could move to Ferrari with that same idea that he'll dictate what like sort of Ferrari do?
I think that would be true in any team other than Ferrari. I just can't see, with everything that's gone on in the history of that team, it happening. I think there always has to be someone higher up that answers to kind of the Ferrari bosses. And I don't think you can have a driver come in. I don't think you'd want a driver to come in that could get you sacked because they're doing it their way.
Although Leclerc's almost becoming that driver.
But I think he gets on very well with Fred Vasseur, so he kind of says this. They both know how they operate. Whereas Lewis coming in, he wouldn't know anyone. Really, it would be a whole new experience, and I think it'd be very brave of him to go in and be like, I'm taking over the most historic team in Formula One, and we're doing it my way.
Yeah, but no, I mean, to be fair, he will probably do a better job running Ferrari than Ferrari.
Oh yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he does do that, because I mean, Lewis Hamilton, he has got the experience in Formula One now. He is in the twilight of his career now.
Yeah.
Sort of final stages.
I think I'm resigned to that at this point.
And I think one thing, definitely, the last few seasons show that that the fall off has now started, I would say.
I don't know if it's a fall off or if it's just like...
I won't say it's not properly happened, but you can see it's starting to happen now.
But like, I think if he was at Aston Martin, for example, he'd be challenging.
Oh yeah, 100%, yeah.
So I think it's maybe more the car.
Yeah, no, it's definitely more the car, but yeah.
I think when he wins another race, and I do still think that he'll win one more race in his career, it's going to have very like Vettel 2019 vibes about it, in that you kind of almost feel like this could be the final one.
Kimi and Austin.
Yeah.
It was like you knew it was most likely lost.
I think at that point we knew he was leaving the team anyway.
Yeah, he had like 3 races left of the team.
Yeah. Yeah, because at that point they said they weren't going to renew his contract, and Kimi was pretty much resigned to go to the Alpha.
And then he got better after that.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's sort of the same thing, in that Kimi, by virtue of his experience, was sort of able to do his own thing in a way.
Yeah, but I also think it's different with someone like Alfa Romeo, where actually that team had much better results in Kimi's first year there than they'd had in the previous year.
Yeah, no, I definitely think you're right with the whole Lewis won't be able to dictate if he wouldn't be able to dictate if he went to Ferrari. I don't know. I feel like we're going to talk about Mercedes probably a lot more at Imola, and then like where they go from there. Aston Martin.
Solid weekend.
Alonso
great. Stroll had a stinker. I think that's pretty much it. Really.
The Alonso Taylor Swift rumours are over. Very sad.
Yeah.
Although they did lose points to Mercedes and Ferrari this weekend, I think.
They got 15? Yeah, 15.
How Ferrari got 16.
And then Mercedes got
more than Ferrari.
Yeah. Because they were both ahead. But yeah, I mean, again, it's just Alonso finishing third.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
He is Mr. Consistent.
He is.
I don't think there's anything to say.
Nothing to say. His rates are so default.
I know, this is nothing to say. McLaren having another stinker.
Yeah, but that's default as well.
Yeah, but
De Vries having alright, De Vries. When is he being fired? Because it's De Vries being, it's a classic. Is it the car or is it the driver situation at the moment with Yuki and De Vries? Is the AlphaTauri better than it? is and Yuki's or De Vries is underperforming, or is it worse than it is and Yuki's overperforming?
I think it's a similar situation to what Logan Sargent has at Williams, in that Yuki Tsunoda's had a year with that car that was dreadful last year, and towards the end of the season he was picking up results, and he's continued that into this year with all the kind of knowledge and experience and kind of actually the number one driver tools at his disposal now. And same with Alex Albon at Williams, with actually also as well both being very good drivers.
Yeah.
Whereas Sargent and De Vries have come in to new teams they're not very familiar with. Sargent less so, but
I feel like Sargent's been more consistent.
yes, he's been less crash happy.
Apart from Australia.
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah.
And then I think also don't forget the differences with Sargent, that this is his first proper A-list
Yes.
racing seat. De Vries is a former Formula E world champion as well.
And yeah, De Vries has been. How old is Logan Sargent?
He's about 20, 21, I think.
Well, I think people have evaluated Logan Sargent off the potential that he's had. In 2020, was very close to winning
He's
that.
22.
Yeah.
They're getting scarily young these days.
I would be surprised if he's not in that Williams again next year.
Oh no, he definitely will.
Whereas De Vries, I'd be surprised if he has another drive in Formula 1.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's what, 28
28
as well.
Yeah.
He's 28.
Nick De Vries is a prime IndyCar driver.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely going across there in like 2 years' time.
No one just get back to Formula E.
Yeah, I don't know how he can win a championship in street circuits and be dreadful at all street circuits so far.
No, but I think you do compare Sargent and De Vries, and I guess maybe we can even include Oscar Piastri in this debate. But who's had the better start to the season out of all the rookie drivers? Like with 5 races in now, it's probably.
I'm going to say Piastri, maybe because he's had the worst luck when it comes to reliability in McLaren. Because the whole lot, obviously we had Bahrain where literally his steering guard decided.
Bahrain where he all F Ford or something.
Yeah, and then
Saudi Arabia, he hit the debris off Norris's car.
Yeah.
Who got, was it?
Australia had a solid race.
Australia solid race, got points. What was the last? Oh, Baku. Yeah, that was just Baku.
Yeah.
McLaren were dreadful.
Yeah.
And this one.
He had basically had no brakes.
Yeah.
Because he had the brake by wire just completely had a complete fault, and then I think he had some issues with the energy recovery system as well.
Yeah.
So he had less power as well. So.
And he's sort of been challenging. Norris.
He has kept up with
Certain
Norris.
points.
Of course, Norris is ahead because that is Lando Norris, and obviously Norris is much more experienced than Piastri. So
Norris's
that's
championship caliber should have won a race so far.
Yeah.
Anything I'll do to bring up that sort of 2021 race. But no, but yeah, as you say, Piastri keeping up with Norris has been unlucky so far, and I probably agree. Piastri's probably had the better start to the season.
I think McLaren also been a big upgrades package to Imola as well. It's meant to be the original car they were meant to start with.
Has Imola become like the new Spain?
Probably.
Where everyone just started bringing their upgrades.
Yeah, I think also it's kind of like it's a good point in the season.
With Europe, it's
Yeah.
just close to.
It's the start of a triple header as well. So if they work,
Oh god, Imola, Spain, and Monaco. That's a triple
header.
header. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Three of the worst
Right.
tracks.
Spain is our only hope.
At least they got rid of the chicane.
Yes, that is so true.
That's
That's the one good thing the FIA has done this year so far.
I had not thought of that.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Speaking of the FIA,
Oh.
we got another pit.
We'll come on to that. We'll do Sargent and De Vries a bit more.
Okay.
Because we need to get everything out.
Okay.
We've got to wet just rinse dry this race and how deep it was. But no, I mean, Piastri's done very well. Logan Sargent has come into the sport. He almost won F3. He was put in a fairly average to bad F2 car and outperformed that car to a massive extent. I think it was like Charouz, they won their first ever race and they've been in the sport since 2015, and you'd assume in F2 that at some point you'd just get lucky enough with the carnage.
Is he insurance?
I think so.
I thought it was Carlin.
No, Carlin are quite good, I thought. I like it.
Yeah.
But Logan's he's come in, and I think everyone has just recognised it as a Williams.
Yeah.
And like, he's 20th, but with how close. Ah, you're right. With how close the season is this season, especially in qualifying, like 2/10 was the gap between him and getting out. He has done fairly okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like I said, they just got.
He's met expectations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's still settling in. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I think he's outperforming what Latifi would have done on 3 years less experience,
Yeah.
which is what you can ask for.
Like, it's challenging Albon on occasion. Like, not
Yeah.
very often, but
I think as well, actually, you look at the tracks you've been to. Australia, never been there before. Baku is chaotic.
he'd never been to Miami.
Never been to Miami. Jeddah, again, is one of the most difficult tracks on the calendar, probably.
Yeah.
And then Bahrain, where he was solid.
And it's his first ever
Yeah.
F1 race.
Yeah.
So, Piastri's probably outperforming what most people were expecting. Logan's definitely meeting expectations, and then De Vries is just not in the slightest.
No.
No.
Because where's De Vries had incidents at? Baku, Miami. I wouldn't technically count Australia because he got punted by Logan Sargent.
Yeah.
But it's not even, it's just he's been like so bad or like not good.
For a driver that's meant to be very skilled and technical, you've not seen him do anything that would show you that he is that.
Well, he's been 14th, 15th, retired, and 18th.
Yeah.
Like,
Whereas Sonoda's been getting 10ths and 11ths.
it was 14th out of 17 finishers, 14th out of 18 finishers, and obviously 15th and 16th with Sargent when he got punted off, retired, and then 18th out of 20 finishers.
It's not ideal.
It's just, and especially when Yuki's actually now really doing well.
Yeah.
Like he's 3/11. 3/11, 2/10 or 4/11. Oh no, yeah, 3 and 2/10. Like that's consistent. It's just
Yeah.
De Vries does he get replaced? Do you think before the end of the season?
It's hard to tell. I'd like to see him at some of the more expansive tracks where you might be a bit more familiar. Because again, actually, a lot of these tracks he's not been to. That's the other thing that we say that he's the pedigree driver,
Yeah.
but he's not been to a lot of these circuits before. They're very different to kind of the cars he'll be driving in Formula E and F2, and it's a big change to go from the electric cars to probably what he's driving now. So I think, yeah, he's done a bad job compared to what he's expected. If I was him, I would not be looking forward to Monaco.
He's got to perform there.
You have to, because it will be a big crash and it'll cost a lot of money. And I think the other thing as well is they've got a new team boss coming in next year,
Yeah.
and you've got Helmut Marko looking over your shoulder.
The most terrifying man in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Helmut Marko is not exactly known to be nice, especially when it comes to driver performance.
He's not very patient.
No, he is definitely not a patient man.
And especially when you've got like the issue Red Bull and sort of AlphaTauri and like Taurus have had for the last few years, and they haven't really had any pipeline talent. It's partially why they went for De Vries and were looking at Paso Award in the first place. But now you've got Iwasa coming up doing quite well in F2. You've got Liam Lawson.
Yeah.
Liam Lawson doing well in Super Formula. There are now options.
Yeah.
So if De Vries doesn't perform, they might be looking at those options to replace him.
Yeah, I mean, you've had a lot of Red Bull drivers over the last few years, but like you said, there's a lot in F2 now that are performing better than they have in previous years.
And the caliber and the season of F2 is actually one of the best we've seen in a couple of years now. So
Yeah, I mean F2's been like what Behrman's doing well.
Yeah, Dennis Hauger's had a good start to the season. Red Bull junior driver.
I can see Behrman replacing Bottas actually.
Yeah, but then you've got Pourchaire as well though.
There's a lot of up and coming talent.
Yeah, it will be an interesting season. I think Guan Yu Zhou again hasn't had an amazing start.
The Alfa
the Alfa is just a slow car.
I think it's fine in quality. It's just
it's very similar to Ferrari. It's just it's a lower tier Ferrari.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, now we can talk about the FIA.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're talking about the FIA.
We'll do the FIA and the whole like everything that happened before the race. I feel like we'd be missing out.
Or should we just do a whole special on the FIA and what they messed up on this entire season?
That would take way longer than 2 hours.
We can do it as a multi-part series.
3-part series on
this week.
This week on FIA messing up.
Yeah, but I'm assuming you're referring to the near incident again that we had.
Yes, yet again. Literally last weekend we had the big controversy with some photographers lining up on the grid while Ocon was entering the pits and nearly ran down about 4 or 5 of them. And this time we've had Lando Norris come into the pits and we just have a guy just casually crossing the pit lane literally as soon as Norris is entering the pit lane.
I will partially defend the FIA here in that it does look a bit more like just a man being incompetent rather than the FIA being incompetent.
Yeah.
Like surely they could change. They did change the procedure now. I think they're waiting till all the cars cross the line before, which should have been the procedure in the first place. But again, I guess you could make rules, and I don't understand why you wouldn't have like an 100-meter exclusion zone at the start of the pit lane.
Yeah.
For people crossing, because obviously that gives time for people to look.
Yeah.
Before we get taught this stuff in like when you're in like year 4 or whatever to look before you cross.
I think as well you should have everyone that's on the pit lane should have access to the team radios.
Yeah.
Because you have to hear the drivers will get called in, and it's like Norris was literally told like box. And if you hear that, you should not be crossing the pit lane.
Yeah. Like just 100 meters at the start of the pit lane where you can't cross, because then realistically pit lane's what 2 meters wide.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't take too long to cross it. So if you just have that gap where you can't do it,
it's difficult though, because you look at places like Zandvoort where it's already quite tight to fit all the teams in. It's how I think there should be no non-team members. Before I think they should have it so you've got all the teams can be fine, and that's the team's responsibility. Then that's not on the FIA, that's on the team. Any FIA representative should be at the other end of the pit lane rather than the near end. They should be at the end where the safety car and everything is.
Yeah, I think it was partially. I think also the pit entrance. Did they change that this year? Because they put in like the weird chicane.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I couldn't remember. I mean, Miami 2022 wasn't the most memorable of races, but I didn't remember that chicane being there. But yeah, it's just another level of like incompetence.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think this time was probably this is a rogue man.
Yeah, it does seem like Florida
man.
Yeah, literally.
No,
He's like, you just literally see from the onboard, this is a guy just not without a care in the world.
I think it's the old saying of you can't legislate for stupidity.
Yeah.
I think it's obviously always on the FIA, but at some point there are just going to be people that are a bit dumb and do start crossing. Yeah. And speaking of things that were a bit dumb, the start of the pre-race, I didn't watch it, and I'm quite happy.
No, me too, because I arrived late at the pub, so I did not watch the opening procedures.
Right, Will, you were the only one to witness the cringe.
Luckily, there was the football on at the pub as well, so I was watching that instead.
Yeah. Oh yes, yeah. Being a fan of entertainment and a Manchester United fan, yesterday was not the most optimum of strategies.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, what do you, again, it's probably going back to Miami and the sort of vibe that they're going for, but do you...
It's been quite divisive. I don't have an issue with them having to walk out one at a time.
Yeah.
I see no problem. I don't get the interviews with them, like talking to them. That just seems, you do about 8 million interviews over the weekend. Why do you need to do one just before? Like, what's the point in Martin Brundle's grid walk? He's not going to get to talk to any drivers if they're all harassed before.
I did love to see all like the Max Verstappen moves, which is like if he, this is the moment where he just hated F1 the most.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, I from what I've seen, quite divisive. I don't.
Yeah.
It's not my favourite thing in the world. I don't really care for it, but I kind of. They do it for Indy, and that seems to be like one of the most enjoyable parts. And
yeah, but F1's not an American sport.
Yeah, they're trying to make it one.
But then, but we did have one that was very funny. Mr. Jackie Stewart fighting security.
Right, if you disrespect Jackie Stewart, you mean like have a word with yourself.
Yeah. Legendary.
I didn't see it. What actually happened there?
I don't know, because I think he
was trying to talk to Roger.
Yeah, he was just trying to get to Roger Federer, and he basically managed to barge his way through the security to get to him.
He seemed. I think he's. I thought he can't be that big of a man because I was only coming up to about that.
No, Jackie Stewart is not the tallest man on earth, and obviously, let's just say he's been around for a while now.
Love him.
But yeah, I mean, legendary man, but
it's iconic, isn't it?
Yeah.
We didn't have any sort of like celebrity incidences.
Not
like the Megan Thee Stallion.
No, this is nowhere near as bad as that.
Yeah.
Thank God that they banned like bodyguards on the paddock properly. So like on the grid wall. Because like, why do you need it?
Yeah. It's fine, but it again goes back to, does Austin/Vegas, will they do it better? Yes, they probably will.
Yeah.
It's just like Miami does nothing.
Oh, yeah, and then we also had Will I Am doing.
I haven't heard the song yet.
Yeah.
Is it good?
I didn't hear it.
Even if you were listening to it, probably wouldn't hear it. Wouldn't be able to hear it anyway because it's too loud.
Yeah. Right, I've got a great segue here, but it does require us ending the Miami part. So has anyone got anyone else?
No.
Anything else to say?
No.
Very NPC race.
Yeah.
Any midfield? They were all perfect.
Pierre Gasly had a much better weekend.
Yeah.
Alpine in general had a good bounce back.
Alpine had a solid weekend.
I think Gasly's weekend in Baku was sort of the worst weekend you could get in an F1 car.
I think it was, as well as Australia, probably one of his best weekends in Alpine. I know there's only been 5, but it was kind of back to the Pierre Gasly that actually people kind of remember.
I don't think Australia was his best race of the season.
Yeah.
Until it tragically ended in carbon fibre and a wall. Right. Back to my segue. So speaking of entertainment, the news that the F1 film with Brad Pitt, and he'll be in a car in a race, not in a race, in an F2 car and an F1 car. No one seems to know what's going on.
I think it's been misreported. The one that everyone was like, because Colton Herta put out a tweet basically saying that Brad Pitt got his super license. I think it's going to be like, it's an F2 car that Mercedes have worked on, basically to get free wind tunnel time to test their new side.
Let's do this.
I would expect to look like a
seems
Formula
if
1
the
car.
F2 Mercedes adapted car is quicker than the F1 Mercedes car.
When Mercedes got over the cost cap.
But no, I think that has, so it's apparently an F2 car designed to look partially like an F1 car,
From like inside and from distance.
which will then be updated in post-production.
Yeah.
And will be driven at Silverstone, but not during actual sessions, during breaks.
Yes.
During
There
sessions.
was talk it might be during the formation lap, but I don't think that's true. I can't imagine, it'd be stupid to do it during the formation lap. Just seeing him fly past and take out Max Verstappen on the formation lap because he's locked up into Stowe or something.
Yeah. Brad Pitt as well. If oh my god, my voice is going. If it was Tom Cruise, I'd kind of...
Yeah, I'd be okay
I'd be
with
fine with it because that man's insane. Like,
That guy just does anything and everything.
He's good at everything as well, it's not fair. But Brad Pitt's like, it's an odd choice. The film, like it's by the same director as Top Gun Maverick, which was a brilliant film.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the film will be good. I just don't know how I feel about sort of the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't see the need to run it at an F1 weekend. I get you want it to be really
I think
realistic.
they want the fans there.
Yeah, I
sure.
mean, to be fair, the fan atmosphere, but
It's 400,000 unpaid extras.
That is true. But if you're going to use footage and you want it to look like an F1 car,
Do you reckon they'll use like actual F1 footage and then like superimpose Brad Pitt's car into it?
that would look dreadful though.
That would look really dreadful.
There must be other cars on track. That's the thing. That's what. Like, 'cause you can't just film a car on its own.
Well, like
it just wouldn't look like a race.
Stunt drivers.
I imagine Lewis Hampton has got a few people that he likes in the paddock and like, oh yeah, do you want to just go around in the background to make it look like we're racing?
Do you reckon Lewis might do it?
Do you reckon it's a souped up F2 car and they're just going to do it during the F2 race and just going to go lap the field? Or something silly like that.
Yeah.
Just get some F2 drivers to do it. They're normally involved in car racing.
Yeah.
I have now realised it is just giving teenagers like cars that can go way too fast for them, and it's just the carnage that brings.
Yeah, but it's such a big difference from F3. That's what, like, F3 you have no pit stops and it's just one tyre for the whole weekend, and there's 800 F3 cars. The Australia race was just stop-start. It is basically just how dangerous can it be whilst being safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think I'm looking forward to the film. Don't know how I feel about the whole production side. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll either be fine or we'll laugh at it when we get to stuff.
I think everyone was a bit like, you've just had a really big dramatic incident where people almost died, and now you're announcing that you're going to put an actor on track with F1 drivers. It wasn't the FIA's finest week. But
yeah, I think it'll be fine. And there's sort of been one other story that's probably taken place over the last few weeks, and that is F1 Academy and its lack of coverage. So F1 Academy, the new female-only series, I think it's modified F4 cars, I think, or it's like Formula 4. It's modified cars, obviously designed to boost female diversity, try and support female drivers, identify the best female drivers that can then possibly enter the F3, F2 and potentially even F1 pipeline. But there has been the issue of a lack of coverage for the series. We had the first race a few weeks ago now, and no coverage for that. But after the race, you saw all the replays, you saw all the coverage that was put at that out, but not live, and it doesn't look like there's any issues with what they've got. It's just what they've got isn't being shown.
yeah, I mean, I don't know why they have. If it's an F1 thing, it's like, why aren't they on F1 weekends? Why are they not at the same tracks? I get that you're going to do the European ones and that it's hard, but why you're not going to send the F3 drivers to every weekend?
Yeah.
So why not have F3 and F1 Academy alternate? And that way you get the TV coverage time. The F3 drivers don't have that many races anyway. You obviously have the time in the weekend to do it. I know there's other things like Porsche Super Cup or whatever, but ultimately if you're the ones paying for that weekend, you should be able to dictate how it goes.
So, yeah, I mean, apparently it's disagreements between F1 and Sky about who gets to cover it, and I'm assuming it's that they both want to have exclusive.
Yeah.
It'd be bad if neither wanted it. That would be concerning.
That would be really bad. But so obviously we assume it is both want to cover it, and obviously it would be good to see live coverage of it, because even on F1 TV, even on free to air like you saw with W Series for the last few years, because it is boosting diversity for obviously not been a female F1 driver in a race since 1975. The last one to take part in a weekend, Susie Wolf back in 2014, I think. It was in the Williams, or I think it was the Williams in 2014 or 2015. So You are surprised, I guess, at least I am, and probably everyone else is surprised that they aren't like covering it live.
Yeah, I feel like that's just a big blunder. It is just a big blunder at the end of the day now. It's like one of the biggest things they need to do is at least trying to expose the actual and expand females in motorsport. But if you're not going to broadcast something that you're pushing so hard to expand, what's the point?
Yeah, it felt all kind of very last minute organised, like everything just. It's the sort of thing that should have been sorted.
Do you think it was because sort of W Series went bankrupt?
They were like, oh, we need to do something.
Yeah.
I get it's good they've done it. I think it would have been better for the sport and for the series in general if they said, look, we're going to wait a year, we're going to have everything in place, you're going to have F1 weekends, because I think it is from next year that on F1 weekends.
I think that, waiting a year may have been, I think there is that support for it. And I think there's almost, obviously it's not a positive effect, but because it hasn't been covered, it's almost been spoken about maybe even more.
People are talking about it.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure why they haven't done it on F1. It's the lack of F1, like, parity almost. Like, you kind of not... Why have you got your own series taking place in Valencia at a track you don't even race at on the same weekend as your event?
Yeah.
Like, no one's going to... If you're not showing it, and I didn't even know it was on this weekend.
Yeah,
I had no idea. I just saw the highlights. Like, oh, it looked good, but there's no kind of coverage. No, like Sky aren't even promoting it. Like F1 aren't really promoting it.
Yeah,
it's
like Twitter promotion in a way. People talk about it.
It's almost just like
things like that.
It's like you get an advert come up for it more than actually seeing it itself.
Yeah,
and it will be interesting because junior Formula are always interesting. We go back to the crash happy teenagers in F2 and F3, and there is that desire, there is that support for it, and I just hope that once they get the issues, maybe the rights issues ironed out, that it is shown and that people will watch it, and I think there is that support. I think people will.
Yeah. The thing I'd like to see, someone like Lewis Hamilton that goes on a lot about kind of promoting it. I think it'd be really good if someone like him or Sebastian Vettel would be another good one to set up a Formula 3 team that is female orientated. So it's three drivers, team principal, all of it is female based, and you have that pathway at least into it. So you've got a guaranteed seat, and someone like Vettel. Well, Vettel could be the team principal, knows a lot about cars, knows how to set them up. So you wouldn't have, because you've had in the past, like Tatiana Calderon was in F2, wasn't the worst team on the grid, had no chance of points, just was never going to work out.
But even like Hamilton's got form for setting up teams, he's obviously in Extreme E, that series. That sounds like an idea that could work.
That, or you could say, okay, look, if you want a fourth car in Formula 3 or a third car in F2, you have to have a 2-1 split or something to increase kind of our participation, because you've got drivers that are more than capable of performing at these high levels.
Yeah, I think it's really good that it's there, but there are massive improvements that need to be made.
Yeah,
it's too segregated.
Yeah, and I hope that that's just because it's new.
Yeah,
and that once it's established, and from the highlights I've seen, the racing has looked really good. Like it's been like the first race in Austria ended really with a really close finish, and I just hope it's new, and that from next year it will be part of the structure, and it will be, because that's the thing F1 has done now. It's incredibly structured and sort of how you move up, when maybe even back in the day, like we say back in the day, but even in the early 2010s almost.
And Verstappen completely jumped GP2.
Yeah.
Completely.
But there was
Kimi had done about 7 races, junior and single seat driving or whatever.
But there was GP2, and then there was F3, but F3 in different places, and
GP3. There's like 400 million different F4s. And
But now it's clear there's regional Formula 4.
There's into Formula 3, Formula 2.
Formula 1.
if not IndyCar.
Or Formula E.
Yeah,
Or Formula E.
If you don't make it in IndyCar.
Yeah.
There is more structure, and I really hope they do make F1 Academy into the same way. And I do think that there is that support, and once they get the rights issue sorted out, and come on, guys,
Yeah.
get the issues sorted out.
To be fair, it's similar happening with the Women's World Cup as well, isn't it? Where they're threatening to block the broadcast. But I think that's just more...
Because Europe doesn't want to pay money for a lot.
But that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will say that they have done well about it, as opposed to the W Series, is that if you look at the teams, they are all feeder teams. You've got MP, ART, Prema. They're all these teams that have access to F2 and F3Cs. So you are much more likely to get drivers progressing.
Yeah. And the cream rises to the top.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But hopefully we see some of that in the future. Any other news that happened over the last few weeks?
No.
Not really. There's not been much going on lately.
No.
NPC Sport.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to Imola for 2 weeks' time as we're recording this.
Yes.
Obviously, history of Imola is long and great. The racing at Imola is
Long.
Long.
and not great. I understand why it's on the calendar, but if there was one historic race that I could lose without losing much sleep,
Yeah, it was
It
off
would
the
be
calendar
Imola.
for so long. And they brought it back, and the races they had back weren't even that
but it was
great before they renewed it.
right. This is one thing I loved about the 2020 season. It wasn't very entertaining in terms of the.
But we
title
got all the
battle.
random tracks.
But
right?
we got it was just such a random
Yeah.
season. It was like we were just thinking. I swear they were just making the season up on the fly. They were like, we're gonna go to Nürburgring.
They had a map of Europe and a dart in their hand. Like, where this lands, the nearest track is where we go.
Yeah.
They went to Ferrari's own track for their 1000th Grand Prix.
They should,
Yeah.
right. I saw this idea. They should alternate Imola and Mugello.
I have no
Yes.
issue with that.
Mugello may not be the best when it comes to racing, but it's probably one of the, if not the most beautiful track in the world.
But then I think that would set up a good precedent as well,
Yeah.
because you could then do Spain. You could do with Jerez.
Germany could
do the 2 races again.
Yeah.
What bring back like a European race that you used to have,
European
just a
Grand Prix.
generic European Grand
I
Prix.
don't think that will.
So one country gets 2 every year.
I don't think that.
France Hatch.
It's too short.
It is,
Yeah.
but hang on.
I didn't. Brands Hatch is like in my constituency. And I never realised this. I'm like, it's just 20 minutes on the road. Why can't there be F1 races there? But no, I mean Imola. So we had 2020 with
George Russell crashing under the safety car.
Russell crashing under the safety car, Verstappen's tyres just blowing up,
Yeah.
and Hamilton won. 2021. I guess you could say the start of the Lewis Max carnage right at the beginning.
I think everyone brings that up. I don't think either of them was really that.
When did it start then?
It's got to be Silverstone.
It started at Silverstone.
It's
Probably.
when Max almost died.
Yeah.
Is when it started.
Because the thing is, Max Lewis was still probably
respectful.
very respectful even after Imola.
I think Spain
They
might
shrugged
have
off.
been another one where
Yeah.
Max very much just committed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I think Lewis, and he left the door open a lot earlier in the season, and
And then obviously Lewis with his detour into the gravel, which fortunately was made up by his current and then future teammate deciding to have a nice crash.
Yeah.
And red
George
flag
Russell trying to get the Mercedes seat too early.
bonked Bottas on the helmet.
And then 2022 last year
Start Ferrari.
Yeah.
Being Ferrari for the year.
Yeah.
And perhaps this boring sprint weekend.
Yes.
Last weekend.
Don't know who thought the sprint weekend at Imola.
We've got one in
Well,
Qatar later this
Yeah,
year.
but at least you can overtake in Qatar. You can just about overtake.
Just about. There's a long straight.
I keep
Yeah.
forgetting we're going back to Qatar.
It's in September as well.
Why? What?
I think that's right. I think it's quite early.
Qatar,
after the
no,
com-
it's beginning of October.
I think it's before they go to Japan.
It's after Japan. They
Is
go
it?
to, it's
Okay.
Japan, Qatar, Austin.
Mr. Worldwide.
Yeah.
Absolutely no regard for air miles.
Yeah, but at least they're not like back-to-back weeks.
Yeah. So Imola's not. I mean, finish what you were going to say, Liddy.
Oh, I can't remember what I was going to say.
No, Imola's not the most interesting of races. So we'll predict it. Right, what were our predictions for last week?
Alright, yeah, very, very, very quickly. We were tied 20 all going into this weekend. So I predicted Perez, Leclerc, Alonso for the podium. So
4 points.
that's 4 points, but then you scored 3 points.
Did I?
Because you get Perez, Alonso, Verstappen. Because remember we banned
Oh yeah, we did
Verstappen
ban
from winning the race now.
Verstappen wins. We're going to keep that ban.
Yeah, we're
I
going
thought
to
you
keep.
should just put him second every week though.
No, actually, no. We had that new idea where we both like take a driver.
Yeah.
So-
So we only one of us can take the thing. So
Right. Do you want?
And then,
okay,
yeah,
well,
very
I
quickly,
want to-
1,
before we
2,
do that,
3.
1, 2, 3.
So we both got our 1 pointers. So I put 6 different constructors in Q3. There was like 6 in the top 6.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time that happened.
I said the sign. You said there'll be something wildly American, which is basically the whole weekend.
That was a LeBron slam dunk of a
Yeah.
prediction.
Yeah. And then I said the signs would not be the points that he didn't get stay in the points.
Yeah.
And you said Sargent would get points.
No.
20 points. But
20.
then this is the interesting one. I was very close to getting my 3-pointer.
Ooh.
Ish. Well, I was close because one of them did. Haas
Okay.
double points finish.
Did Haas get
Magnussen was 10th. And Hulkenberg was sort of
12?
for some.
Something like
He
that.
dropped to 15th, I think. But then, this is where you come in.
Ooh.
You said there'll be less than 2 DNFs.
Let's go!
So-
The boring prediction won.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's bad.
Right,
I think
so
I-
that leaves 25 points to me. And that means
27.
27 to
to
you.
me.
So now Will
Nice.
for the first time this season has taken the lead.
I think it might be the first time ever. I'm gonna be honest.
Hmm?
I think it might
No,
be the
you
first
did-
time ever.
No, he did take the lead some in the last season as well.
Yeah, just because of Jack. Okay,
Yeah.
it's France predictions.
Yeah, Jack's fucked.
I think I got like 12 points that week.
Yeah,
It wasn't even me.
yeah. So what you're gonna do is your podium.
Podium. Right. Are we doing this? Well, should we do this new format?
Yeah, we'll do.
All right. Okay. I'll go first then,
Yeah,
and then we'll alternate
Yeah.
each week. So, gee, I wonder who I'm going to take. I'll take Verstappen. Right.
Ooh, so
Actually, do you want to go 1-1, then you go 2, then I go 2, and then I go 3, and then you go 3?
yeah.
The
That works.
the ABBA structure.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
So from the person who I'm gonna go for to win the race. Ooh, I'm just trying to think. I want to go a bit wacky on this one
Okay.
because then we always go. Well, it's gonna.
Well, you got
go
second
very
as well,
quick.
so
Huh?
you can take your second one before I can
Yeah.
take my second one, so you can.
So I'll go first and second.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be very thing. I want to go for Alonso winning.
Ooh.
I'm gonna hope Alonso takes the win and Perez gets the second place.
He's won at Imola before.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was when we were all toddlers, but.
Yeah, he's won at Imola, and the Aston Martin is very, very good in the corners. So
Not a bad shout, and you've also got second.
yeah, I went Alonso Perez.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, so you're going for your second and third.
I think. Well, Ferrari in the corners, right?
You're not back in Mercedes and then you upgrade?
I might. I might make that a 1 or 2 or 3 point prediction. No, I'll do Leclerc second, and I'll say Hamilton third,
Okay, fair.
and then you got third.
My third place, I'm going to go Leclerc.
No, I'm taking
He's got
Leclerc.
Leclerc.
Oh no, you got Leclerc. Sorry.
It's basically Russell, Sainz, or Stroll.
Literally. No, I'm not going to put Stroll.
Lando Norris, what?
You know what?
3 in a row.
You know what? I don't care. I'm going to put Lando Norris on the podium.
Well, their big upgrade package coming
Yeah,
out.
Suddenly makes them as quick as Red
Yeah.
Bull.
Yeah, I don't get. I know that's like the most wacky prediction ever, but it's like I
The
don't.
final race of the season.
I honestly think it's more accurate that Alex Albon could get a podium.
The final race of the season is a three-way battle for the title between Verstappen, Norris, and Piastri. Okay.
Yeah, so what's your 1 pointer? You go first.
Or 1 pointer. The Mercedes upgrades see a mark. You can see the improvement in their performance.
They work.
They work. The Mercedes upgrades work.
Okay.
And obviously, work is a very subjective term.
Yeah,
as well.
we'll
We can
discuss-
argue about next week.
we'll argue about that. I'm going to think that both Aston Martins are both right. I'm going to do both Aston Martins in the top 8
Okay.
and on the grid. I know it's a bit of a safer 1 pointer. So.
I was about to check the Imola weather, and then I realised the weather
Yeah.
doesn't work 2 weeks in
Yeah.
advance. To be fair, I did say Miami was definitely going to be dry, and then it seemed to be like threatening rain for the
Yeah.
entire weekend. Didn't come because it's F1. And
Yeah.
It doesn't rain, or when it rains, it pours.
Yeah, what are you going to do for...
2 point. I will go for, and I wrote this down because I made a joke about it while the race was going on. Hang on, notes up. Click. Professional. Verstappen complains about something that then doesn't affect his car in the slightest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we had the gear shifts were a bit slow.
Yeah.
Didn't make a difference to how well he was doing.
Oh, I thought you meant something about the sprint weekend's dreadful.
No, that's just
Still gets more points than he would.
Yeah.
that man just wants to race. He does not care for anything else. And
I
I
think he
kind
just
of
wants-
respect
He just
it.
wants basic F1,
Yeah.
and he just wants to drive and not have press. He's basically Kimmy, just everyone hates him.
He's just
Yeah.
Kimmy, but like more dislikable.
Yeah.
He's Kimmy without the good PR.
Yeah. Pretty much. Without the one-liners and war.
Or driving standards. What? I didn't say that. Starts out with the max.
Yeah. I'm going to think Mercedes out Q2 again.
Alright, so we're very much going different paths on whether the upgrades work or not.
It wasn't their best weekend last year.
No, don't remind me
Yeah.
again. 3 point. You go first on 3 points.
Okay. 3 plus safety cars in the race.
Oh,
There's gravel, so it's not if you want.
No.
This-
Actually no, I'm going to change it. Not 3 plus safety cars. A VSC, safety car and a red flag.
ooh.
Do they have to be separate?
Huh?
No, the FIA, they
I'll
could
give
do
you,
all
I'll
three
give
in
you
one.
like an Australia vibe.
Yeah.
Safety car that I like that. Red flag.
It stops
It's
with
it's
VSC.
got to be there though. Like
Yeah.
all 3 at one point.
No,
in
I'm
the
fine
race.
with that. Wait, are we counting? No, we're not counting red flags in the race.
It has to be the race though, yeah.
Cool.
In practice 1.
Practice 2. Well, this show just becomes a slander. Like, that's all it is. Like
I'm a driver, but he just annoys me.
Yeah.
gravel track. There's no gravel tracks in Miami. That's why I did that. 3 point. Ooh. Someone finishes ahead of a Red Bull. Is that too vague?
Yes.
Okay. A Aston Martin finishes ahead of a Red Bull. Does that count as 3 points?
You literally said Alonso's gonna
Yeah, I literally that's a race prediction. No.
3 plus cars finish ahead of a Red Bull. No, 3 plus non. A Red Bull finishes out.
So no Red Bull on the podium.
Or a double
But
non-Red
then
Bull.
you
Wait,
put
hang on.
Verstappen to win the race.
No, I'll work this out. A Red Bull outside. A Red Bull finishes, not DNF,
Yeah.
outside the top 4.
What happens if it DNFs in 7th?
Then it ruins my prediction.
Yeah.
A Red
But
Bull-
it can't DNF.
Yes. I'm counting 90% race classification.
Okay, so basically they just have to be dreadful.
Yes, a Red
Or
Bull.
have like 800 pit stops and...
Yeah. Red
Which is
Bull
really-
outside
yeah.
the top 4.
Which is brilliant because you have predicted Verstappen to win.
Yeah.
So
It wasn't
So basically-
Verstappen I was thinking of in this
Yeah.
situation.
You need it to rain and Perez to become master at Silverstone in 2008.
Yes. Can all of my predictions work at once?
Well, or Checo
Yeah,
is
because if
Lewis
both the
last year.
Mercedes engines, if Mercedes are better,
Mercedes are better. Verstappen complains.
yeah,
And
then his teammates dreadful.
and then his teammates dreadful. Then yeah, I'm fine. Okay.
So basically, you want Checo to be Lewis last year.
I will never slander Checo Perez, but it would be ideal for my prediction.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
my 1 point is
Is the Merc upgrades work?
Merc upgrades work. 2
You would say
points.
Max complains about something that doesn't affect his performance.
Yep, and 3
Three
points.
is a Red Bull is outside the top 4 but cannot DNF.
Yes.
So it has to finish the race as well.
Finish the race outside the top 4.
And your podium was Verstappen, Leclerc, Hamilton.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. My podium is Alonso, Perez, Norris. Which is what I know.
You should have done science for the triple Spaniard thing.
I know.
Or like Hispanic. I don't know.
And then you got both Astons in top 8 in quali, by the way.
Yeah.
And then one of the Mercedes is out of Q2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there has to be a VSC and safety car and a red flag in the race.
Yes.
Oh,
Doing did we do a 5? Oh, we did a Florida man
Yeah.
5-pointer.
No.
No, yeah, because that would have required something interesting to happen
Yeah.
during the race.
Yeah.
What were they? Do we write them down? Or?
I know about them now.
No. Imola's not unique enough to have a
No.
5-pointer.
Nah. I think that one. Let's leave that.
It's
there.
not gonna be a good race. I've not got hopes.
So we all Ferrari fans again.
Yes.
Do you want to face it?
Phil. We forgot the fun daily weekly segment of what did Ferrari do wrong this week.
Oh yeah. Well, it's pretty much Leclerc crashing twice in the same corner.
Yeah. Wasn't
Yeah.
Ferrari
Actually,
this
their
time?
strategy
Leclerc.
wasn't.
Bad. Yeah,
The
but
team
the
wasn't bad.
Ferrari messages include the drivers, don't you? Because
Although I do think the strategy of the Miami Grand Prix wasn't the most very.
You can't get it wrong.
Yeah.
no.
The fact that neither of their drivers started on the hards is probably their fault.
They picked the worst strategy.
Yeah.
Out of 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously Sainz speeding the pit lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are
So
the
this time it's the Ferrari drivers at fault and not the Ferrari team.
yeah.
1 week you'll get them both right.
Yeah.
What's Ferrari 1-2? Oh, Bahrain 20.
Yeah, Bahrain last year. It should have been Austria last year though, until his engine blew up.
Yep. And
Sorry.
then,
No, was he in third?
No, but he was catching Verstappen.
yeah.
I think he'd literally just overtaken him that lap or something.
Oh yeah.
And then there's the whole thing with the car rolling down the hill.
Yeah, he was about to catch
Like
fire
on
or
fire.
break his leg or
Yeah.
something. I thought,
Okay. But that has been the show. We managed to squeeze a lot out of Miami.
was Austria the last race that Charles Leclerc won?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Apart from Brazil, it's the last race that any team other than Red Bull have won.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's Adrian Newey needs to be studied for science.
Yeah.
And
no.
then I'm sorry to do this, but Lewis Hamilton's last win
No.
is of all the races Saudi Arabia 2021.
Should have been that.
Carlos Sainz has won a race more recently than
Than
Lewis
Lewis
Hamilton.
Should have been Abu Dhabi.
But it
Wasn't. We
wasn't.
don't go there. No,
Oh,
we'll be,
Mikey, no, it's motor racing.
should have been Brazil if he hadn't been punted off the track by Max Verstappen.
No, there was no way.
No, he
No.
wouldn't.
He was closing on Russell.
If
with
he
damage.
if he had been punted off the track by Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen would have won that race. Yes, he was going quicker than the Mercs, and he was at the back of the pole.
Maybe.
Yes.
Right, let's not get what could have happened in the way of what did happen. Right, we'll be back next week to do something.
The
Probably talk about
TBC.
TBC. But it will be interesting. Thank you to Will, thank you to Chinmay for coming
Yeah.
on. Hope you've enjoyed.
Yeah.
More entertaining than Miami was. Quickly end it before I keep talking.
Yes. So
Right,
yeah.
thank you for listening.
Yep.